There exists a particular kind of person who feels more alive within the walls of their own home than anywhere else in the world. They are not hiding. They are not broken. They are not afraid of life. Yet the world often looks at them with confusion, sometimes pity, as if something essential is missing. But what if I told you that Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, discovered something profound about these individuals? What if their preference for solitude isn't a weakness at all, but rather a sign of psychological depth that most people will never understand? Carl Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But here's what he understood that others missed: not everyone needs constant chemical reactions to feel alive. Some people have such rich internal chemistry that they create transformation within themselves. They don't run from the world. They run towards something deeper. According to Carl Jung, these individuals possess what he called a highly developed inner world, a psychological landscape so vivid and complex that external stimulation often feels like noise interrupting a symphony. Their minds are theaters where entire universes unfold. Their hearts are libraries where every emotion is catalogued, understood, and given meaning. To them, home is not an escape. It is a laboratory where the soul does its most important work. And if you're one of these people, there's something critical you need to understand about yourself. Something the world has kept hidden from you. Carl Jung discovered that human beings operate on a spectrum of psychological energy orientation. He gave us the terms introvert and extrovert, but his meaning went far deeper than most people realize. Jung wasn't simply describing social preferences. He was mapping the direction of psychic energy itself. For some, energy flows outward, seeking stimulation, connection, and external validation. For others, energy flows inward, seeking reflection, integration, and internal understanding. Neither is superior. They are simply different ways of being alive. Those who love staying home often belong to what Jung called the introverted attitude. But here's where it gets fascinating. According to Jung, introverts don't avoid the external world because they fear it. They limit their exposure to it because they process reality more intensely. Every conversation, every social interaction, every moment in a crowd, it all requires deep psychological processing. Where an extrovert schemes the surface of experience, collecting breath, the introvert dives deep, seeking meaning beneath every interaction. This is exhausting work. Home becomes the place where this processing can happen without interruption. Jung said that the introvert's real life happens in the internal realm. Their true experiences are subjective, filtered through layers of personal meaning and emotional depth. A single conversation can provide weeks of reflection. A single experience can reshape their entire understanding of themselves. This is why they don't need constant novelty. They are still processing the depth of what has already occurred. Their internal world is so active, so alive, that external stimulation often feels like an intrusion rather than an enhancement. But society misunderstands this completely. We live in a world that glorifies the extroverted ideal. The loud, the social, the constantly connected. According to Carl Jung, this creates a profound psychological pressure on introverts to wear a persona, a mask that doesn't fit. They learn to perform extroversion, to pretend their energy moves in directions it doesn't naturally flow. And this performance is exhausting. It splits the personality. It creates what Jung called a shadow, all the authentic parts of themselves that must be hidden to fit in. Home becomes the only place where the mask can come off. The only place where they can stop performing and simply exist as they truly are. The world sends constant messages to those who prefer solitude. You're missing out. You need to be more social. Don't you get lonely? Why are you always alone? These questions carry an implicit judgment, as if choosing home over crowds indicates something incomplete, something damaged. But Jung understood what these critics do not. He said that solitude is dangerous only to those who cannot tolerate themselves. For those with rich inner lives, solitude is not isolation. It is integration. People who love staying home are not running from life. They are engaging with life at a depth that requires stillness. They are not antisocial. They are selectively social, understanding that their emotional energy is finite and precious. They don't scatter themselves across dozens of shallow connections. They cultivate a few deep ones, relationships where authenticity can breathe and meaning can grow. This isn't weakness. According to Jung, this is psychological wisdom. The irony is profound. Those who constantly seek external validation often feel empty inside. Those who sit quietly at home often feel profoundly full. The introvert doesn't need a crowd to feel seen because they have learned to see themselves. They don't need constant noise to feel alive because they have discovered the music that plays in silence. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are rather than who the world demands you be. And this process cannot happen in the chaos of constant social performance. It requires space. It requires quiet. It requires home. Yet the misunderstanding persists. People assume that staying home means stagnation, that these individuals are somehow frozen in place while life rushes past them. But the opposite is true. While the world chases experiences externally, the homebody is undergoing profound internal transformation. Their growth doesn't announce itself with photos and posts. It happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching. And that makes it no less real. I remember the exact moment I stopped apologizing for who I was. For years, I forced myself into spaces that drained me, convinced that my preference for home meant something was wrong with me. I attended parties where I felt like a ghost. I said yes to invitations that made my chest tighten. I performed the role of someone who belonged in the noise. And I was miserable. Not because I lacked social skills. Not because I didn't care about people. But because I was betraying my own psychological nature. Then I discovered Carl Jung's work, and everything shifted. Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who your friends expect. Not who society demands. But who you authentically are beneath all the masks and performances. I realized that my love of home wasn't a flaw to fix. It was a truth to honor. My need for solitude wasn't antisocial. It was how my psyche restored itself. My preference for deep conversations over small talk wasn't snobbery. It was a hunger for meaning that surface-level interaction could never satisfy. The transformation wasn't about becoming more social. It was about becoming more honest. I stopped forcing myself into environments that contradicted my nature. I stopped feeling guilty for declining invitations. I stopped measuring my life against external metrics of success and started measuring it by internal ones. Am I at peace? Am I growing? Am I honoring who I actually am? These became my questions. And when I answered yes, I realized I had found something most people spend their entire lives searching for. Alignment between my inner world and my outer life. Jung discovered that psychological health isn't about fitting in. It's about integration, bringing all parts of yourself into harmony. For me, that harmony required accepting that home is where I do my best thinking, my deepest feeling, my most authentic living. And once I accepted that, I stopped feeling like I was missing out. I realized I had been participating in life all along. Just on my own terms. What the world fails to recognize is that those who love staying home possess psychological strengths that are rare and valuable. Carl Jung said that your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. This is the fundamental difference. While others chase dreams in the external world, the homebody awakens to reality within themselves. And this awakening brings gifts. First, there is self-knowledge. According to Jung, the psyche contains vast unconscious territories that most people never explore. They live on the surface of themselves, never venturing into the depths where true understanding lives. But those who spend time in solitude naturally become explorers of their own consciousness. They notice their patterns. They understand their triggers. They recognize the difference between their authentic self and their conditioned responses. This level of self-awareness is not common. It is earned through hours of quiet reflection that only solitude provides. Second, there is emotional depth. Jung discovered that the psyche processes experience through feeling as much as through thinking. Those who love staying home don't rush through their emotions. They don't distract themselves from discomfort. They sit with joy until they understand its source. They sit with sadness until they understand its message. This creates emotional intelligence that translates into wisdom. They become the friends who truly listen. The partners who truly see. The artists who truly feel. Their emotional depth isn't a burden. It's a form of richness that shallow living can never produce. Third, there is creativity. Jung said that the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves. And those who love staying home have vast internal playgrounds. Their imagination isn't constrained by constant external input. They can sit with an idea for hours, turning it over, examining it from every angle, allowing it to grow and transform. Some of history's greatest artists, writers, philosophers, and innovators were homebodies. Not because they feared the world, but because they needed space for their inner world to breathe and create. These are not weaknesses disguised as strengths. According to Carl Jung, these are expressions of a psyche operating at full capacity, doing exactly what it was designed to do. But here's a question that cuts deeper. If home feels so safe, what exactly are these individuals protecting themselves from? The answer is more complex than simple social anxiety. Carl Jung discovered that human beings have varying levels of psychological sensitivity. Some people have thick psychological skin. They can absorb stimulation, chaos, and emotional intensity without much internal disruption. Others have thin psychological skin. They absorb everything. Every emotion in a room. Every unspoken tension. Every shift in energy. This isn't weakness. It's sensitivity. And sensitivity requires protection. Those who love staying home are often protecting their nervous system from overstimulation. According to Jung, the psyche has natural rhythms of expansion and contraction. There are times to engage with the outer world and times to withdraw and integrate. But modern society only values expansion. It treats contraction as failure. This creates enormous pressure on sensitive individuals to override their natural rhythms. Home becomes the place where they can finally stop resisting their own nature. Where energy can settle instead of scatter. Where the nervous system can regulate instead of react. They are also protecting their emotional authenticity. Jung said that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But homebodies do the opposite. They face their soul daily. They know themselves too well to pretend. And the world often punishes authenticity. It prefers performance. It rewards those who can fake enthusiasm, manufacture charm, and hide discomfort behind smiles. Those who love staying home often refuse this game. They would rather be alone and honest than social and fake. Home is where honesty doesn't require justification. Sometimes, they are protecting themselves from past wounds. A friendship that betrayed them. A crowd that rejected them. A moment when their sensitivity was mocked instead of honored. Jung understood that trauma doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it whispers through preferences. A love of home can be both nature and nurture, both authentic preference and learned protection. And that's perfectly valid. So let me speak directly to you now. If you're someone who loves staying home, you've probably been told your entire life that something is wrong with you. That you need to be more outgoing. More social. More like everyone else. You've probably questioned yourself, wondered if your preference for solitude is actually fear in disguise. You've probably forced yourself into situations that felt wrong, trying to become someone you're not. And I want you to hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. Carl Jung said that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But that terror is also the path to freedom. You are not broken because you find peace at home. You are not antisocial because you prefer depth over breadth. You are not missing out on life because you measure richness differently than the crowd does. Your quiet is not emptiness. It is fullness that doesn't need to announce itself. Your solitude is not loneliness. It is self-companionship, one of the rarest and most valuable psychological capacities a person can develop. According to Jung, the world needs different types of people operating from different psychological centers. If everyone was extroverted, there would be no depth, no reflection, no art that emerges from silence. Your way of being is not a mistake. It is necessary. It balances the noise. It creates space for meaning. It demonstrates that there are multiple valid ways to be human. You are not less than those who thrive in crowds. You are simply different. And different is exactly what you should be. What if instead of trying to fix yourself, you honored yourself? What if you stopped measuring your life against someone else's definition of fullness? What if you recognized that your internal world is not a consolation prize for lacking an external one, but a territory of equal value, equal beauty, equal importance? Jung spent his entire career trying to communicate this truth. Psychological wholeness doesn't mean becoming more extroverted. It means becoming more yourself. And if yourself loves home, then home is exactly where you belong. Here's where the psychology becomes fascinating. Carl Jung discovered a paradox at the heart of human development. He said that loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. This means that a person can feel profoundly lonely in a crowd and profoundly connected while alone. The homebody understands this paradox intimately. They are not running from connection. They are seeking authentic connection, which is far rarer than physical proximity. According to Jung, most people confuse togetherness with connection. They believe that being around others automatically creates relationship. But true connection requires vulnerability, authenticity, and mutual understanding. It requires both people to remove their personas and meet soul to soul. This kind of connection is exhausting to create and maintain. It cannot happen constantly. It requires preparation, energy, and the right conditions. Those who love staying home understand this instinctively. They would rather have one conversation that touches their soul than dozens that skim the surface. They would rather sit in meaningful silence with someone who understands them than fill the air with words that mean nothing. This is why their relationships, though fewer, often run deeper than most people experience. When a homebody lets you into their space, physical or emotional, it means something. They have chosen you. They have deemed you safe enough, real enough, worthy enough to see them without their mask. Jung called this psychological intimacy, the meeting of authentic selves rather than social roles. And it cannot be forced or rushed. It emerges naturally when the conditions are right. But here's the deeper paradox. To truly connect with others, you must first connect with yourself. Jung said that the meeting point between you and another person is not out there in social space. It is in here, in psychological space. You cannot give what you don't have. You cannot share authenticity if you haven't discovered it within yourself first. This is why solitude isn't selfish. It's preparatory. It's the necessary work that makes real relationship possible. The homebody who spends hours in self-reflection isn't avoiding others. They are becoming someone worth meeting. Someone who knows themselves well enough to recognize and honor another's truth when they encounter it. Carl Jung gave us a map of the psyche that explains why some people need home more than others. He said that the psyche contains both conscious and unconscious elements. The conscious mind is what we know about ourselves, our daily thoughts, our surface feelings, our social mask. But beneath this lies the unconscious, a vast territory containing everything we've forgotten, everything we've repressed, and everything we've never allowed ourselves to become. According to Jung, psychological health requires regular communication between these two realms. And this communication happens most effectively in solitude. Jung discovered that the unconscious speaks through symbols, through dreams, through the quiet voice of intuition that gets drowned out by external noise. Those who love staying home are often natural listeners to their unconscious. They notice their dreams. They pay attention to their gut feelings. They sense when something is wrong even if they can't articulate why. This isn't mysticism. It's psychological sensitivity. They have maintained an open channel between consciousness and the deeper layers of self. And this channel provides guidance that external advice can never match. Jung also described what he called the process of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming a complete, undivided self. This process requires withdrawing projections, owning your shadow, integrating your contradictions, and ultimately accepting yourself as you actually are rather than as you wish you were. And this work cannot happen in constant company. It requires solitude. It requires honest self-examination. It requires the courage to face parts of yourself that others cannot see and would not understand. The homebody, whether they know Jung's language or not, is often engaged in this work. They are individuating. They are becoming whole. According to Jung, this is the most important psychological work a human being can do. Not achieving external success. Not accumulating social proof. Not performing for an audience. But becoming authentically yourself, integrated and whole. And if that work requires spending more time at home than in crowds, then home is exactly where you should be. Jung himself was someone who needed long periods of solitude. He built a tower where he could retreat from the world and dive into his own psyche. He understood that depth requires space. That wisdom requires silence. That becoming yourself requires time away from the demands of being what others expect. So here is the truth that Carl Jung spent his life teaching, the truth that you need to hear if you've ever felt ashamed of loving home. Your preference for solitude is not a problem to solve. It is a nature to honor. Your need for quiet is not antisocial. It is how your psyche maintains its health. Your love of home is not avoidance. It is alignment. You are living in accordance with your psychological design. And that takes more courage than following the crowd ever could. Jung said that the shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Stop trying to wear shoes that don't fit. Stop apologizing for needing what you need. Stop measuring your life by someone else's metrics. Your internal world is not less valuable than someone's external adventures. Your quiet growth is not less significant than someone's loud achievements. Your way of being alive is exactly as valid as any other. The world will always try to convince you otherwise. Society will always glorify the extroverted ideal. But you don't have to believe it. You can choose to honor your own truth. You can choose to protect your peace. You can choose to build a life that doesn't exhaust you but sustains you. And when you do, you'll discover something beautiful. You'll discover that home is not a place. It's a state of being. It's the internal alignment that comes from finally accepting yourself completely. Carl Jung discovered that the privilege of a lifetime is becoming who you truly are. You are not missing that privilege by staying home. You are claiming it. And that makes you not less than those who seek themselves in the world. It makes you wise. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it.